Hello, this is the next video in a playlist that I'm calling Using R, and here I've created an R program to play Martin Garner's math logic game called HIP. Now before we get to the program, I want to briefly explain what HIP is. And this is a website. It's a 6x6 grid, and two players take turns putting a marker of some sort on the grid. And the first person to create a square loses. And so there's different ways to create squares. You can have a tilted square like this, or what I'm calling a normal square, means not tilted, so it's sort of parallel to the lines of the grid. And that's it. Now the game, when it was created, it was a hippie phase in the United States, or a hip phase. And one saying they would say is, "Be cool, don't be square." And this game is about not creating squares, so he called it HIP. Well, let's get back to the game, and I'm going to close this so my machine runs faster. So what we have to do first is to create solutions, or ways to create squares in this grid. And then as we play, we're going to compare it against the possibilities of a square. And this first line of code creates all possible non-tilted squares. And there's 55 of them. And it saves those. And then this next line of code creates all possible tilted squares. Now there's 105 ways to create squares in this 6x6 grid, and it's actually a pretty cool combinatorics to calculate, but I didn't do that. So let's go through this function very quickly, and I'm going to copy this code into the comments section so you can copy and paste it into your R program and play. So first we create the grid that we're playing on. So we plot a 6x6 grid. I create a function to see whether X is playing or O is playing. I track the plays, and I create a while loop as long as the counter is less than 37, right? In 6x6 grid, there's 36 plays, so we keep going until we're less than 36. I have an indicator for an end game, because if you match a square, then we set the end game to true, and then it ends the game early. You don't have to play all 36 squares. Locator is a way to create a situation where you have to point and click on a graph, and it brings back the coordinates from your click. And then based on that click, we store it. Now this isn't bulletproof, so if you click on the same square, it doesn't know how to treat that just yet. And I'll show you what I mean in a second. We track the plays, we plot them, and then we check to see if our current plays matches one of the solutions. And so this first goes through the tilted square solutions, and the next one goes through the normal or non-tilted. Did we match? So we need to know if we end the game. And these are just counters to continue to play if we don't match a square just yet. So you run that, and to play this game, you simply just play this line of code, play HIP. And here's the grid. So it brings back, and I have control with this, with the mouse. And so I start clicking, and the first one's an X, next one's an O. You see this, and so you just continue. Now if you click outside the grid, there is some code that doesn't let you do that. So then it comes back, and you just play until you you match a square or not. And so I'm randomly clicking here. Actually, I've gotten pretty far without creating a square yet. Oh, there we go. You see the X's? So the X's have created a square, and you lose. So X's loses, O's win. Now, notice this is what I'm calling a normal square. It's not tilted. And now I'm gonna play again, but purposely lose just to show you that a tilted square actually exists. So if we put an X here and say an X here, and then an O and an X and an O and an X and O, and then if I play an X here, that should create a, oh, 1 2 over, 1 2 over, 1 2 over. Oh, I should have put an X there, darn it. Well, let's create another one. So here is an X, so I'll create a tilted grid here. Yep, and see, it came back and X loses. Oh, and it also works for O's too. I guess both cases X has lost, but O could lose. So here is an O, and let's put an O here. So go 1 2 over, put an X, 1 2 over, and then this should create a square. So anyway, this is the game called Hip, and it's pretty cool. Hope you enjoyed this game. Put some comments in the around whether you've played it, you like it, have you heard of Hip? I'm so curious. Hope you enjoyed this. I sure did. Please like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Thanks. Bye.